Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. How do you like my background I'm trying out? Huh? Anywho, so today I decided to do something different. I wanted to record some podcasts for over the holiday and because I'll be traveling. So I thought I would do several in a row. So what I'm doing is, you guys know I love to talk about the spiritual laws. I love getting things really down to a common denominator, so it's very simple and very clear. And spiritual laws can be used in every situation all the time. They're, no matter the size, no matter if it's a big situation or a small situation, it's, there are things that we can kind of latch onto as a foundation, which I love that stuff. So I was, there are different people out there saying different spiritual laws, and I've talked about them a lot. And one thing that some of you will understand is that when you talk about spiritual laws, they overlap. Like, somebody can talk about karma, for example, and then they can use a different spiritual law to talk about what you put out is what you get back. And it's like, well, if you start discussing those, they're kind of the same law, and most things are like that, because if we want to get closer to the truth, we simplify. If we want to get further from the truth, we complicate. So we just, if you talk enough about basically any spiritual law, you're going to come down to love as the common denominator. So I didn't want to go into a list where they had 36 spiritual laws or 15 spiritual laws even. I wanted to get as few as possible so we could just get right to the core of it, right? So the ones that I chose to use as a framework is the ones that are explained by Bashar and Daryl Anka. So basically what he says is there's 5 spiritual laws, which is very few, and there's kind of 4, and you'll see what I mean as I get into them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you guys a brief overview of the 5 spiritual laws, because that's what I like. That's how my brain works, is to kind of have a framework of the overview, and then I can get the specific points for each one. I kind of have an overview to put that information in. So here's the overview of the 5 spiritual laws. Number 1, you exist. You always have, and you always will. Existence itself is an eternal constant. Your consciousness is immortal. Number 2, everything is here and now. Time is a linear progression. Past and future is an illusion. All experiences and parallel realities exist simultaneously in the present moment. Number 3, the one is all, and the all are the one. All consciousness is interconnected and a part of a single unified whole. We are all interchangeable reflections of each other and the universe itself. Number 4, what you put out is what you get back. Reality acts as a reflection of your dominant vibration, beliefs, and expectations. Your external experience mirrors your internal state. This is similar to the law of attraction. And number 5, which it kind of, you'll see what I mean. It could be 4 of them. Number 5 is everything changes except the first 4. So those first four never change. And the fifth law is that the first four never change, right? The only constant in the physical universe is change. The first four laws are immutable, but everything else is subject to transformation. So that's the overview. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss the first one, which is you exist. Okay, so you always have and you always will. Existence itself is an eternal constant. Your consciousness is immortal. So, talking about that, the first way I was exposed to this was some teachings many years ago. I don't know who it was, but they said, try to imagine not being, just no longer existing. And so I tried, and I'm like, okay, what would it be like to not exist? Like I can't wrap my brain what it would be like to no longer exist. Like I can't really imagine that. Like I can imagine everything else. And this is what they were saying. They were saying you can imagine everything else, but you can't imagine not being, because there's nothing to it, right? There's nothing to imagine. So you can't imagine it because there's nothing to imagine. And if you can't imagine it, then it can't exist. It can't happen. Because it it wouldn't be existing. Like you can imagine anything, but everything that you imagine has a possibility of existing. Now maybe some things would have to be different for them to exist, but they could be, but it's possible for it to exist somewhere, where maybe if some things were different, I could imagine being a woman. Now, maybe I wouldn't be able to imagine it very well, but I can imagine it. Maybe that for me, I would have to be incarnate into a different life here on earth to really experience it. But I can imagine it. I could imagine being a dog. I could imagine flying over the moon, just, flying. You can imagine anything, because when you're using your imagination, you're imagining the possibility of it occurring, of it happening. Not existing, you can't imagine. It's how, then what? So basically what they're saying is that it's the only thing that you can't imagine. Why? Because it can't happen, and if you're from a scientific aspect, if we understand that we are energy, which we are, that's proven scientifically, then if we are energy and energy never dies, energy doesn't just not exist. Like you can't take energy and just do something to it and then have it no longer exist. It can transmute into different forms. It can rearrange, like it can become, water can freeze and be ice and then be liquid and then be in a gas state, but it can't not be. It can change its forms, but it can't just stop being, because then it wouldn't be energy, because energy doesn't stop being, and we are energy. So how could we just stop being? We just like where would the energy go? So it's impossible for us to not exist. Now, of course, there's going to be people who have different belief systems, like, aren't into spirituality, don't believe in it or something, they could come up with some hypothetical, something. Um, then by all means, let them. Not here to argue about it. If this doesn't resonate with you and you think it's a load of crap, then don't worry about it. But for those of you on the spiritual path, we are an eternal constant. We always are. We are. We're changing form. We're here for a while, then we can go on the other side, then maybe we'll come back, maybe we'll go somewhere else, maybe we'll choose to have some different experience. Who knows? We don't know exactly what happens and how and blah blah blah. But there's many theories on that, right? But not existing, it's impossible. So these laws are huge, right? That's what this is the dichotomy about doing what I explained I was going to do at the beginning. I like getting down to the core, which is good because you're down at the core. It's also hard because it's difficult to talk about it sometimes. There's some things that are going to be a little easier to talk to out of these laws than other things. This one, if I had to guess, I haven't talked about the other ones in this manner, so we'll see as time goes on. But I would expect that this one to be one of the more difficult ones to discuss, because what is there to discuss? You either get it or you don't. You either understand that you can never not exist, like you will always exist, and that you are eternal. You either get that or you don't. And the words are menial, especially when you get down to this level. This is why, like in Buddhism, often they say what something isn't as opposed to what it is. And in a Tao, they say, the Tao Te Ching, they say, well, if you can name it, then that's not it. Right? Because these spiritual concepts are much broader than something that simple words can express. They're gigantic, literally universal concepts. Like, and we can't figure out what time to pick up our laundry. And I'm over here asking you to let's exist. Let's discuss not existing as an impossibility. Let's discuss our own immortality on a spiritual level. Like, it's like, huh? So it's not easy. It's not easy finding words to point towards this truth. It's not easy to expand our mind to fully grasp it. This is why sometimes I talk about grasping things with our heart. I find that when I'm using, there's intelligence throughout our whole body, and there's intelligence that we're connected to, divine intelligence, and there's gateways to divine intelligence. And what I found is that focusing on my heart area, my chest, that if I try taking in information, just this is one of those things that's hard to talk about because you can't put words to it. You just have to try to do it. Something inside of you knows how to do this. Like when I say things like this, something inside of you already knows how to do what I'm telling or asking you to do. So you just have to try it and play around with it, and then all of a sudden it clicks one time and you're like, oh, I can do that. Because I'm never going to be able to teach you how to do it. Like, you just have to do it by trying to do it. So if you perceive the ability to take in information through your heart, like that's a doorway to absorb conceptual information. you're going to have a better time. You shift up into your head. What happens when you shift up into your head is your brain engages, and your brain is just a database of what's been put into it through experiences and study and all this stuff over your lifetime. So like you start trying to put this in, a concept as broad as this into a database that only understands human experiences based on its past experiences, it's not going to know what to do with it. It just doesn't compute. I have nothing like this to attach it to make sense out of it. It's just it's too broad of a concept, right? So just let go of the brain and try to focus on your body. Try to sense if there's some truth. Pay attention to how you feel. If you sit there and be like, okay, my existence is an eternal constant. My existence is an eternal constant. If you put your attention on your heart, pay attention to how it feels. Pay attention to your sensations that you feel inside of your heart. To me, I feel a warmth. I feel a comfort. Something very light, but noticeable if I put my attention on it. And it's pleasant. Now, if I can compare that to, let's say, it's possible for me to never exist. Like, when I said that, I just felt this weird, non-pleasurable sensation go right up the center of my sternum. It just kind of, and I don't know how to describe what the sensation that I felt. It felt almost like a little sliver of weakness going up through the center of my chest. It didn't feel confident and true. It felt weak and untrue. So this is how we can learn to connect to divine wisdom, to our intuition, to understanding these broader concepts. Is understanding we are much more than our brain. We are much more than our emotions. We are much more than we think we are. We are eternal consciousness connected to everything else. So like we have the ability to grasp these things, but it's not easy because we can't grasp them in ways that we grasp other things, intellectual knowledge, which we've been trained and conditioned to take in information that way and only that way. And then if we can understand it intellectually and regurgitate it back, possibly in different words, then we get it, which that's not true because, not really true. I mean, it might be true in surfacey stuff like mathematics, like 2 + 2 = 4. Well, that's because if you take 2 apples and you add 2 more apples and you have 4 apples. Oh, okay. Boy, you understand that. Yeah, I understand it on an intellectual level. We're talking about concepts here that are much deeper than that. So we have to go deeper. It's these concepts. I think we have to contemplate on them every once in a while and expand our consciousness around them. And then they become more of us. And then all of a sudden life starts reflecting situations where this is true. And we start, like I've done past life regressions where somebody guided me through, and some of the stuff that I saw was amazing and it felt true to me. And I trust that feeling, and then I've even dropped into meditations and had past life experiences that felt true to me. So it's like, I believe what feels true to me. I don't really care if my brain can make sense of it. It's because it will eventually to some degree. And I'm not dependent on my brain. I don't want my reality to be based on, like, to me, if my reality was solely based on my brain, then I would be no different than a computer. Like, it's just, I can only, I'm a really advanced computer. My brain is the most advanced computer that's ever existed, but it's still a computer. It just takes in information, things that we've seen, things that we've experienced, and meshes it, things we've read, and meshes it all together into data, and then spits out reactions. And when I live like that, I don't like my reactions. I don't like my life. I didn't. A lot of my experiences weren't pleasant, so a lot of stuff in my database is unpleasant. And so if somebody if somebody challenges me, gets in my face and challenges me, my reaction from my past experience is to challenge back, to stand up for myself. Why? Because I had many of those experiences. They're in my data bank. And I tried everything else first and none of it worked. And then standing up for myself started working. So that became an unconditioned or unconscious response to when I was challenged. If I'm attacked, I'll attack back. Why? Because it worked many, many times. So that's my unconscious reaction. But that's not who I want to be. I'm not in control of who I want to be when I'm just dependent on a computer spitting out a reaction based on my past. I don't get to choose what I want to do consciously. I just have to react. And that's not how I want to live. I want to consciously choose how to react. Because then I have an opportunity to consciously choose how I want to live, consciously choose who I want to be. If I'm just based on my past, then I have to be who I was, because if that's in control of how I interact, then I'm going to continue interacting the way that I always have, because that's what's in my database. Right? I want to consciously choose how to act in situations, not unconsciously react to situations. So being in that present moment and having, no attachment to my brain, then all of a sudden the circumstance comes in and I'm conscious and I can be like, okay, what do I want to do here? Oh, then all of a sudden a new way of being can flow through me. That's how I like to live. So it's expanding our consciousness. So, but getting back to the, hopefully some of this points towards our consciousness and points towards the power of our consciousness, and the fact that it's immortal. I mean, the fact that it's immortal is an aspect of it, but there's other aspects to our consciousness that's connected to divine wisdom. Why? Because it's immortal, because it's from the immortal side. Our consciousness, like I said, if I'm focused on my brain being who I am, then I'm just a database, just a collection of experiences while I've been here on earth. But if I'm connected to my consciousness, my immortal, my eternal consciousness being who I am, well, then I have the ability to access everything. Like, I have the ability to access wisdom that is eternal. That's who I want to be. I want to, I want to live. I want to live from the eternal sense of who and what I am, and then I can play with life. So that this is, I guess this is one of the ways that I have talked about this concept before. I believe that life is We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So that means I'm a spiritual being first, because that's primary, that's eternal, that's forever, right? That's what I am at my core. And when I am connected to that reality, I sit in a seat of safety. I am one with God. I am provided for. I am able to live a life of abundance and peace and love and joy, and without fear, because I'm eternal and I'm connected to the one that is also eternal. And none of that ever changes. So this is, that's how I want to exist. That's what I want my reality to be. That's the primary focus of my reality. Okay. So, and then from that seat of safety, then I can interact with life. I can interact with the transitory life, the life here on earth. And I can interact with it from that place of safety. I'm not, and I'm not scared all the time. I'm not knocked around all the time, because I understand that everything that's happening is transitory. It's fleeting. It's temporary. It's not real. So I'm safe. So I don't have to try to protect myself all the time. So there isn't a fear, right? You see how when you start diving into these concepts, you start understanding it. Like my favorite quote, oh my goodness, is it going to come to me? Because I'm on that other train of thought. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. That's from A Course in Miracles. Contemplate that. Nothing real can be threatened. I cannot be threatened. I cannot no longer exist. I cannot be damaged, hurt. I'm okay. I'm safe. That's my seat of safety. And then if I look in the world of form, all those things can be threatened. A car is going to be a pile of dust someday. Somebody can bulldoze over a house. Even our physical bodies can be threatened. So they're not real. It's not who we are. It's a temporary, fleeting experience. If I think that is the end all be all and that's what I am, then I live in fear, because I have to protect something that can be threatened. Right? This is what, when you start embodying these concepts, you start seeing how deep they are. Like I can branch off into vulnerability, because vulnerability is something that we all experience on an earthly sense. Why? Because everything on an earthly sense can be threatened. So therefore it's vulnerable, and we're like, oh no, I have to protect myself. But really, all we're protecting, it's an illusion. All we're protecting is our ego, our egoic self, our temporary self. That's all we're ever protecting. I mean, if we're protecting ourselves physically, then we're protecting our our vehicle that we're here temporarily in. I'm not my body. It's just a vehicle I'm using to get around through this temporary incarnation here on life. So like if I'm protecting my body, well, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, let's look at it realistically. I'm just protecting something that's temporary. If I'm protecting my ego, well, my ego has too much control. So I want it to lessen. I want to be in control of my ego. Sometimes my ego still gets in control of me. So parts of it dying off and dissipating and dissolving, that's a good thing. So why am I trying so hard to protect it? Well, somebody disrespected me. No, they didn't. They disrespected your ego. They disrespected who they think you are or who you think you are. They can't disrespect you. How can they disrespect an eternal being? What are they going to do? Like, oh, you're bad. You're not eternal. Of course I am. Like, you're not going to argue with them over it, try to prove it to them, but if somebody says you're a jerk, you go, no, I'm not. Ooh, that'll trigger you. Why? Well, because you're trying to protect your ego. It's okay. Let that part of your ego go. You don't need it. You're just trying to protect something temporary. So do you see, once you start understanding this and dividing what you are attached to and what you're not attached to, you can attach to things that are eternal because they're eternal. They never change. So those are good things to attach to. I am safe. I am loved. I am eternal. Those are good things to attach to. They enhance the love within you and the sense of safety and the peace and the joy, that they enhance all that. If I attach to my ego, well, now I have to run around protecting it from the other 8 billion people that have different egos and different ways of looking at things. And it challenges those all the time. So do you see, like, just that these laws are so profound that just one of them can change your entire existence. So going into this, right, just you always exist. Now all of a sudden we brought it into this broad concept, this what it actually means. And this is why at the end of my favorite quote, it says, herein lies the peace of God. It doesn't say you need to do 32 more things to find the peace of God. It doesn't say you have to go through 14 trauma healing retreats and listen to 688 podcasts and read 422 books. It doesn't say that. It says herein lies the peace of God. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened. You are eternal. You can't be threatened. You can't be hurt. You can't be harmed. Nothing unreal exists. So if it can be threatened, then it's unreal and it doesn't truly exist in an eternal sense. So you don't have to protect it. You don't have to be attached to it. So if I let go my attachment to things that are transitory and constantly changing and fleeting and just don't really hold any eternal value, because, like I said, that's one of the reasons why we can't hold on to them, because they're always changing, which one of the other laws says. So like we're trying, if everything changes, how can we prevent it from changing? We can't. But we spend all this energy trying to make sure it doesn't. That's impossible. So when we let go of our attachment to things that are fleeting and transitory, and we put our attachment onto things that are eternal, herein lies the peace of God. Now I'm peaceful, I'm safe, I'm okay, and I can interact with life, fully participating in life. It's, that's the other thing the ego says. It says, oh, if you don't have an attachment to the external things, then you won't care about the external things, and you won't even interact with the eternal things. Those are all lies to keep you attached to the external things. Those are lies. Once you're anchored, then you can fully participate and have no attachment to an outcome, because you're not trying to control anything. And it becomes a spiritual practice. I played a lot of sports growing up, and this is, I've been in the zone in sports, and I've seen other athletes be in the zone, and that's spiritual practice. And you can do it in art. You can do it in all kinds of areas in life. I'm just familiar with the zone in sports. And when you're in it, it's like everything's in slow motion and it's so joyful. You're just experiencing a flow of energy with the universe, and it's, what's going to happen before it's happening, and you're interacting with it. The levels of bliss and joy that you experience in that realm is just out of this world, literally, right? So it's not like we interact with life less. We interact with life more. We interact with life in a more fulfilling way. letting go of the trying to control. I just rewatched Spiritual Liberation with Michael Bernard Beckwith, the movie, which I absolutely love. If you haven't watched it, find it and watch it. But in that, he talks about an aspect of this where I think it was in Bill Russell's book. He talks about being in the zone and stepping on the court and noticing that the other person is in the zone as well, and it's an exchange of energy where their best comes out and they know what's going to happen before it happens, and it's just it's this amazing experience. And winning and losing doesn't matter. It's much more than that. It's participating in a flow of energy. It's so much more fulfilling. We all need to experience that as much as possible. It's amazing. So I'm going to try to keep these somewhat shorter than my other ones, just I want to touch on each one. But that's basically it. You exist, and you always will. Your consciousness. You might transition out of this life, but you're never transitioning out of your consciousness. Your consciousness is eternal. You are your consciousness, and you are eternal. So attach to that and then fully participate with life, knowing you're safe. Just imagine that for a moment. I'll leave you with this. Contemplate this. Contemplate participating in life where you have no fear. Like because you're anchored in your seat of safety, that you're eternal, you're safe, you're okay. So it takes all apprehension, it takes all fear out, and then you can fully open up and just have the freedom to be yourself and to let your soul's desires be birthed into this world, and let your gifts, these soul gifts that are unique to you in your unique way, let those express out into this world. Bring the love from the eternal into this realm through you. That's what we're here to do. And it's very hard. We can do it in little actions. It's like playing basketball, like I was saying. So you're playing basketball and you're really trying hard to win and do well. And, some people practice. They get really good. They are never going to get as good as somebody who drops into spiritual practice, who can drop into the zone when they step on the court. Like Michael Jordan could do that basically at will, not outside of basketball, as far as I know. But when he was stepping on the court, he basically that was spiritual practice. He could drop into the zone. Basically, he could will himself into the zone, regardless of the circumstances, and perform at a level that is way beyond what he was physically just naturally capable of doing inside of it, just because of practice. Right? So they're not even comparable. How amazing we are when we are connected to the eternal and being an expression of God, compared to how good we can be when we've practiced something a lot. So they're not even in the same ballpark. So open up to your eternal nature. That's where you're going to find that peace and love and attachment. And then your expressions out into this world are going to be mind-boggling. You're going to be doing some things that you never even thought you were capable of, or it was possible, because it's an expression of the eternal. It's an expression of God, which is way beyond us. All right. Hopefully that makes some sense. Thanks for listening, peeps. I will talk with you soon. We'll be on to law number 2. Peace.